You're listening to Bigfoot Society, and I'm Jeremiah Byron. Tonight's account is from New England, just outside Manchester, New Hampshire, where a man named Alex took up hunting during 2020. He wasn't looking for trouble, just squirrels and maybe a buck, but what he found in those woods wasn't in any field guide. And something was huge, silent, and watching, and when it ran, it didn't sound like any animal he'd ever heard. This isn't a legend. It's a real story from a man who swears what he saw was no bear. So stay with us. Bigfoot Society, you've got the privilege of talking to Alex today. Alex is an individual that reached out to me from the great state of New Hampshire, one that I'm pretty familiar with, growing up in really just a few hundred feet south of it in Massachusetts. So it's always fun to talk to people from New England. We don't get a lot of them on the show, but Alex, I'm glad you're on the show today. How's it going, man?
Thank you. Not too bad. It's a beautiful day here. This all started back in 2020 when the pandemic hit. I'm a fisherman, and so I'm always outdoors. But once the pandemic hit, I kind of wanted something more, and I ended up doing my hunter's ed course and taking out to the woods. And obviously, I didn't grow up hunting. I grew up fishing and kind of being outdoorsy like that, camping and stuff like that. But I've never had anything realistically ever happen to me. I believe in God, and I believe there's demons and angels. So that's where my background comes to when I'm afraid of the dark in that sense where, I think bad things do hide in the dark. And so anyways, I went hunting that year, not knowing what I'm doing. So I didn't see much for deer, and 2021 as well. And so 2022 was the year that this all started happening to me. September 3rd was the day that I wanted to go out there and try a squirrel, because I've never hunted squirrels. I've never tasted them. And so I was like, let's do that. My pregnant wife wanted to come along because she wanted to get out and get some exercise. It's the park. It's Bear Brook State Park. If you look at it, it's 10,000 acres, and there's houses in there. It's really close to my house in Manchester, New Hampshire. So anyways, that day we were walking into the woods. It's about a 30-minute walk to the spot that I've hunted before, and I like to. It's off of a logging trail, and we went in there. I had my dog Odin with me, a German Shepherd, and I was going to set a game camera as well. I had my little 22 and a sidearm. As we were getting closer to the actual spot, we noticed that the woods were getting super quiet. To the point there was no more birds. There was no squirrels. It's almost like you could hear a pin drop. But us being unexperienced with the woods, she grew up in the city, and I grew up fishing in the ocean and in rivers close to Lake Society. Realistically, I've never ventured that deep into woods. We were just like, hey, it's really beautiful out here. It's so peaceful. It's September, so everything's nice and green and lively. And I went and set up my game camera, and then I went up about 50 feet away from her to her right off of the actual old logging road that's there. And I sat down. And I had these I just got these new what do they call their ear protection, and the Tactical Pro 300 or something, and they have this passive throw hearing. And I'm just kind of looking at the trees and stuff like that, and just no squirrels. It's pretty weird, but I really couldn't hear with them on, so I actually took them off. And the second I took them off, and I sat there to my right, I'd say before I thought it was within 100 yards, which it is, but I'm talking about probably 150 to 200 feet max. All of a sudden I hear this giant whack, like somebody's hitting a tree, and it happened twice. And then all of a sudden I hear the tree crunching and falling, but it never hit the ground. And I'm like, who the hell is out here chopping a tree down? I'm like, and to the right there is a private property. If you keep going down that way. So I was like, okay, maybe somebody's, doing something, but it just, I never heard the tree fall. I never heard chainsaws or anything. So I found that weird. And at the same time, my wife thought she heard, my wife is 50 feet away from me on the trail itself or on the logging road. and she thought she heard a buck grunt to like her 12 o'clock, and which will also be my 12 o'clock. And then she also thought she heard gunshots to her left, which will also be my left. But there's like a trail down there, and I was like, and it's all swamp area, so I was like, there's no way somebody's shooting guns that way. And when I ended up linking back with her, that she had told me that because I asked her if I was like, "Did you hear that somebody chopping down a tree?" She goes, "No, I didn't hear anything." But Oda was being kind of loud. I'm like, "Okay." And she's like, "Did you hear the buck?" And I'm like, "No." And she's like, "It came from the direction of your camera." I'm like, "I didn't hear that." And she goes, "Did you hear that the hunter's like shooting to my left?" And I was like, "I didn't hear that either." And I'm like, "You think you would hear gunshots in the woods, especially since it's so quiet?" So that was it for that day. We ended up leaving because we didn't get anything. Nothing else happened. I to disclose as well, I've seen the Sasquatch documentaries on History Channel growing up, but I have paid zero mind to it. Like I'm out in these woods. Like the biggest thing out there is a black bear, and from what I've heard, black bears are pretty scarce. So I'm walking out there like there's nothing to be scared out there. I awake to the day. I came back by myself and to the same spot because again I had nothing going on. I didn't know anything. Um, and I was able to get a squirrel, and I was able to eat it and try it out, which I honestly don't think they're that great. Um, so it's funny because by trade I'm a truck driver, and I think a month before I followed Les Stroud on his YouTube channel because I'm a big like YouTuber in the sense of like watching or whatever. And I don't know what podcast I had on listening to YouTube, but nonetheless, it was over. And because I had follow Les Stroud, he posts Sasquatch Chronicles podcast. And the intro to Sasquatch Chronicles intrigued me, so I ended up just leaving it on because I was bored. I didn't know what else to watch while my shifts are about 13 hours of driving throughout the day. So I was like, well, I'll listen to it. And I don't remember exactly what episode that was, but it was the biggest realization in my life. I was like, that sounds like what was happening to me in the woods. I called my wife. I told her, she goes, yeah, maybe. I don't know. That was pretty weird. So I was became obsessed with listening to Sasquatch Chronicles. And the more I listened to it, the more I started thinking maybe there is something out here, but still skeptical about it. I mean, with my religion and believing in God, I was like, who knows what's out here? I mean, I believe in aliens and seeing UFOs and stuff like that. So I actually did not go back to that spot to go hunting. I ended up going to a different spot, and I figured this is closer to the road. It's 350 yards from the road exactly because I have it all mapped out in forget.x. I had already gone there, put cameras. I caught a doe on my game camera, so I'm like, this is where I'm going to be, right here. And so the time came to go hunting. It was on my mind because I was obsessively listening to Sasquatch Chronicles after that. But I still just went out there skeptical. And I hunted for 2 days for 12-hour shifts in there, and nothing happened, and I couldn't get anything. I got out of work at 12 o'clock on the afternoon one day, and I told Ashley, I was like, hey, I'm gonna go hunt. She was cool. So I ended up going in there, and so the spot that I'm at, where I set my deer stand, if you look to your right, you can't shoot because 350 yards that way, it's the actual main road. And even though I hunt with the 45-70, I just didn't want to. I didn't want something to happen and end up killing somebody. So obviously it's not the same spot. To my 12 o'clock as well, there's probably about 300, 400 yards. There's a actual like access trail, and so I didn't want to hunt that way. But where I caught the deer is to my 11 o'clock. So I set my deer stand facing that spot, and that was probably around 60, 70 yards. And that day I sat up there. I had my wife on earbuds, and I was talking to her. And again, I had no experience, so that was silly of me. I actually stopped doing that. So I was whispering to her all day while I was there, just kind of talking to her on the phone. And around maybe 3 o'clock, something like that, 3 p.m., I thought I saw a face this spot. Let me back up a little bit. This spot was also logged out in the past, so there's a lot of trenches and new saplings coming through up. But if you look throughout the day, you can see like you can see the road. You can see cars coming through. So like 350 yards, you can still see the cars, which is so I was like, I felt very secure here. And it's funny because I told this experience to my buddy, and he's like, "Well, there's your problem. Like they can see you from a mile away." I'm like, "Well, I didn't think about it that way either." But anyways, so the spot where the deer that I caught the deer, it was a bunch of saplings around like 8 feet, 9 feet, and in between there was a deer path, clear cut through. And when I saw that phase, it was in between these two saplings that made an upside down triangle. So like the bushes pushed up and made like a V upside down triangle or like a V shape. And like I thought I saw a face. And I told my wife, I think I see a face. And when I spoke to some people before, they were like, "Well, why didn't you put your scope up and look?" I'm like, I don't know. Like sometimes you get these feelings, and it's almost like your inner voice telling you not to do something. And it was just like, "Don't worry about it. It's nothing." So I was like, okay. I didn't look. I just kept talking to my wife, and I ignored it. And looking back now, I'm glad I didn't because I honestly wouldn't have gotten down from that tree. I would have stayed up there, and I don't know what I would have ever done. But anyways, so I kept talking to her. I zoned out. I forgot about it. At that time, the sun was hitting that spot. So it was pretty lit up. When I looked back again, then I realized I was like, "Oh wait, let me look at it again." The sun had gone down drastically, so it was actually the sun wasn't even shining there anymore, and that figure wasn't there anymore. So I was like, "Okay, I'm tripping for sure." I stayed. I stayed until dark because I really wanted to get a deer. It's been 3 years at this point, and I get a little obsessive. I mean, I was literally just fishing right now. I caught myself a keeper. I stretched it out to the last minute before our appointment, so I got a fish in the trunk. Um, and yeah, so I stayed till dark, and I guess I'll describe what I saw after I had this encounter. When I had the actual physical encounter, I'll tell you what it looked like. But so I got down and I packed up all my stuff. I left my deer stand there, and I was still on the phone with my wife. And I'm like, "All right, dude, I'm done. It's almost dark." It's like right before it got completely pitch black, and I start heading back. And me just wanting to get that deer because you get a half hour after shot after dusk. I kept looking back towards that spot where I could shoot the deer, and kind of raising my gun and be like, "Man, imagine if a deer just pops up out of there." I'm like, "I'm gonna take that shot. I don't care. I'm gonna take the shot. Like if I have to track in the dark, I will." And so it didn't happen. At that point, obviously, I have a little flashlight on that I had from fishing season from Walmart. It's a little like that trail, that Walmart brand, Orksar Trail, something like that. And the batteries were already kind of half dead from my striper season. I hadn't changed them because I wasn't expecting to stay there till dark. So I turned those on, and I'm starting to scan from left to right. I can see cars as zipping by because it's a main road of the park where like people have houses along this trail. And I'm talking to her, and then from my left, it's just I see a pair of what looks like headlights at first, and I'm like, okay. Now when I look to my right, those headlights are still fixed in the same spot, so it didn't pass by. And before, I thought that it was my flashlight illuminating these eyes. But as the years have gone on, and I constantly play this event in my head for years now, I realized that when I looked to my right, my crappy little flashlight wasn't really lighting that, and that's what actually caught my eye. Because when I looked to my right, I was looking at almost 1 o'clock, and then out of my peripheral, I saw those eyes. And when I looked back at it, the first thing that just went through my mind is like I gasped. I remember clutching my rifle up to my chest, and the first thing that went through my mind was, "This is a demon. I've encountered a demon," and it was hiding behind the sapling. And I to this day I still can't find that sapling because I don't know exactly where I was. I was halfway between my deer stand and coming back, so it was like 150 yards from the road. And this thing was just standing there, staring at me, and I freaked out. I froze for a second, and when it realized that I was watching it, it turned to its left, facing the road, and it sprinted off in the same direction that my car was, same direction as the road. It just went out of my little flashlights, lighting. And that's when I saw that it was running on two. It ran so fast. It sprinted. And this was like 5 seconds, 6 seconds max where I saw it. I freaked out. It realized that I saw it, and then it sprinted away. And the only thing that I got to see was it running away, and then behind this like small, like maybe like 7 or 8 thick actual tree. And so as I ran away, I saw the bottom half of it, and I saw the shoulder and the feet, and it was walnut brown, and the whole thing was covered in hair. And it was the hair was like the way that I described it was before was spiky, like almost like you when you wash your dog and the hair clumps together into these like spikes. It was almost kind of like that. And I told my wife, I'm like, there's something out here, because she was on the phone with me. I'm like, there's something out here. There's something out here with me. And she's like, what's going on? And I just started booking it. And then I stopped because I recognized from these episodes that I've been watching. It's like don't run because it triggers it triggers something in them. So just walk. So I'm like, okay. So I walked back to my car and I made it out. So now going back to that blob that I saw in the tree, what it looked like was walnut brown, round walnut brown. It almost looked like, I guess, knowing all this now, I'm like, you know when a dog's skin is I guess like a gorilla too. When you know the gorilla skin's like black, that's how it seemed like it was in the face. And I just remember seeing this big fat black eye, which this is from me like just remembering and kind of like just thinking about it constantly. I thought I saw a big black eye and this like just head completely covered in walnut brown. And so yeah, and then after I left, I ended up calling my dad and talking to him, and I just freaked out. I mean, it spiraled me into this like crazy thing where I just had to know. I never went back into the woods. I went back the next day. I remember letting my buddy use my AR, and I took an AK to go get my a deer stand. And 2023 came around. I was like, I'm gonna man up. I'm gonna man up, and I did not man up. I was too afraid to go back into the woods, so I didn't go back. But this year, I said, if God with me, who against me? So I decided to go back into the woods this year, and I went back to one of like the main parts of the park where you can shoot with rifle. I took a friend that I told, which used to be my upstairs neighbor. She believes me. She used to be an Iraq veteran. So, and she wanted to get out and go hiking and stuff. So she's like, I'll go with you. Like, we'll see Sasquatch together. She made jokes about it, but she did believe me and wanted someone to go with. So I was like, all right, let's just do it. I need to break the ice. First day back into the woods. The second I get out of the car, I'm already hearing does and bucks grunting, and I'm like, what the heck, So we head down the trail. The trail comes to a T. The left goes to the old spot where me and my wife had had those wood knocks, and then right is new. I don't really go up that way, but that's where the deer that I'm hearing going off. I'm also hearing crows all over the park, just freaking out, which I've never experienced that in the woods before. They're just like going off, and they were actually going off where I kept hearing a buck and a doe kind of going back and forth or something like that. I'm not sure. I used my buck call from the trail, but I did not. Obviously, I can't shoot from the trail. I have to be, I think, 100 yards away from the trail to actually shoot. And I didn't want to go into that piece of wood because it was so thick in there that I was telling her, I'm like, I don't know how we're gonna get an angle in here. I'm like, the second we start walking through here, we're gonna just spook this deer. So we started. We took that right, kept walking up, and we kept hearing them. And I'm like, I don't know what to do here. I used my buck call. That's when I actually used my buck call. Within 30 seconds, all I hear when we're staring into that piece of wood, super thick, and then I hear whistles. I hear one whistle, and then from the left side, I hear another whistle answering that first whistle. And I just look at her. I'm like, you hear that? She goes, yeah. Because maybe it's just two hunters trying to coordinate. I'm like, I don't know about that. I'm like, this is super thick in here. As soon as I said that, all I hear is just like something running on 2 feet because I could feel the vibration on my soul. Like it was like, boom, 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 boom. And like it sounded like I was going further away. And I just looked at her, I'm like, she goes, nah, that's not sad. I'm like, that's clearly two hunters. And I just looked at her, I'm like, you know what? How about we just keep going and we go left? Because after that, and right after that happened, crows to our 11 o'clock started going off. And I'm like, "Hey, maybe, like, I'm just trying to get her away from there because I started getting paranoid. I was getting goosebumps. I was like, I think we need to get out of here because under my impression, I think that there were Sasquatches hunting in that spot. And I did not want to go in there and disturb whatever was happening in there. So I just told her, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, let's go this way. Like, you hear the crows, like, maybe there's bucks over there. And then, so that, nothing else happened besides, I kept hearing crows throughout the woods. But we went to at like kind of a clearing and we hunted for another 2 hours and we left. The next day, I went by myself for the first time. And I didn't want to go to that same spot because I was kind of afraid that maybe they're still hunting. So ironically enough, I went back to the spot where my encounter happened, and it took me like 45 minutes to travel at 350 yards back to where my old stand used to be. And I went up to where I thought I saw that face for the first time ever myself, and that was like 9 feet, maybe 10 feet, but that was also 3 years ago. So give and take maybe six. I don't know. I don't know how fast a pine tree really realistically grows, but it was pretty tall for it to just be like sticking its head there. I was like, whoa. And that this year is actually the first year on November 17th, when it actually was the day that I had the physical encounter. I bagged my first buck in the same location that I had that encounter. And those are the things that have been happening to me. And so, yeah, that's what's so far has happened. I'm afraid of these things, but I don't want them to dictate my life. So that's why I decided to go back. And as a Christian man, believing in God, I just went back and I bagged my deer. And I'm planning on going back this year again.
That's extremely interesting, especially, I mean, all this happens really not that far away from Manchester, New Hampshire, right?
No. I mean, if you look at a map,
Yeah.
you see it takes specifically why I started hunting Bear Brook was because obviously I don't have friends that hunt or anything like that. So when I started looking up places that I could, because I bought a Savage 308 for my first bolt action, and then realized that I couldn't hunt in a lot of these places near Manchester because it's shotgun only. So then I was like, oh, Bear Brook, I can hunt with the bolt action. So I went there. And the first few years, there was nothing really ever happening to me there. I mean, the second year, I fell asleep for like 30 minutes in the woods because I got so bored. And there's this encounter where I saw it physically is less than a quarter of a mile. I can actually send you a picture of it. It's less than a quarter of a mile because I have it on HuntX. Before all this happened, I like kind of mapped out all my stuff where I was like hunting and all this stuff. Less than a quarter of a mile from an actual house. I've never had the balls to go there and like harass anybody and look like a crazy man and be like, hey, have you ever seen a Sasquatch? But it's fascinating to me that I have a physical sighting where I can say, when this happened to me, it was already dark and there was cars passing back and forth. There was actually a car as I was running to my right. There's I think it's a snowmobile trail, and there was a car like parking lot, and there was a car parked there. So I see the headlights, and I remember thinking, being like, I'm gonna die in here, and there's somebody right there, and they're never gonna know whatever happened to me. I was afraid. The whole fear, like that fight or fight. I was so afraid for my life, and I had a firearm in my hands, and I had a Glock on my holstered. And I forgot that I had firearms. I mean, forget about it. The fact that this thing, what I didn't mention, this thing was 30 feet away from me, 30, 50, 20 maybe. It was right there. It was right there. So it definitely wasn't afraid of me. And it definitely knew that I had a firearm because this thing it's a 20-inch barreled Henry lever action.
Did you get a feeling as to how tall it was when it was running away?
when it first happened, before, if I take away me going this year to that same spot, I thought it was around 7 foot. It's because I'm 5'9" and I was kind of looking up a little bit at it, so I thought it was just it all happened so fast. And this flashlight, man, I'm telling you, this flashlight was not the best at all, and the batteries are almost dead. So it's like the most limited visibility with it, but I'd say around 7 feet. But now looking back with to this year's experience of going to that spot and seeing where I think I saw that blob or that face, I say closer to 8, maybe 9, give or take with the growth of the tree in the last 2 or 3 years. Well, 2 years realistically, which is it can't be that much. So I'd say like 8 feet, then 8.5.
Sure.
It's massive. And the thing is, it's skinny, very skinny. Like think of it like a really tall person that's like lengthy and like just kind of like scrawny. But I couldn't see it built because it was so fast and quick that all I got to see was the color for sure, the hair, and then it was super skinny. I remember what's burned into my head is the eyes or the eye shine or whatever. I described it as like bulbs. It was like Christmas bulbs. It was complete like perfect circles, just bright. And when I looked over back at it and my flashlight was, I mean, I was making eye contact with it in the sense of my eyes locked onto those bulbs and I couldn't see. I still this day I can't see it. All I see was just the eye shine. Even though my flashlight was like pointing at it, I couldn't see a face. I couldn't see. All I saw was that tree, like that thin sapling, it behind that, staring at me. And then when I gasped, it realized that I was watching it, and then it took off. So I don't think it was there to because I didn't get any rocks thrown at me. I didn't hear any vocalization. It from just years of like listening to encounters and stuff, it was definitely curious of me, and I figured that I was stupid enough and I wouldn't see it, so it got even closer. Because 30 feet is very close. That's extremely close, and I hear some people like disappear and stuff like that. That's actually another thing why I decided to go back into the woods because you don't really hear of like people disappearing in New Hampshire. People that usually disappear are like hikers, and they end up finding them unfortunately deceased, and it's just because they're not wearing the right equipment and stuff like that, and they get into these like expert level hikes. But I don't really hear, and you don't really even actually hear of people talk about Sasquatch in New Hampshire. I agree with you that you don't hear a lot of encounters. Last year, I made a comment to somebody because they posted on New Hampshire Deer Facebook page, and I don't remember exactly what the post was about, but I replied with like, just keep your head on a swivel, bud. Like just make sure you're, if you get a gut feeling in the woods, leave. And a couple of people heart like that. So like some people know they're out there. It's just nobody wants to talk about it.
Yeah, and
you know what?
I was just gonna jump in real quick. I think just to make a clarification, I mean, we both know what it's like living in New England. One, it's awesome. Two, sometimes if people don't know you out there, they're not going to talk about stuff, right? Like you just don't talk about stuff. And so,
especially in rural New Hampshire.
Yeah, exactly. And so what I think is that, yeah, there's stuff going on out there, but I just think that not a lot of people are talking about it, right? It's not like in Oregon or Washington where people are more readily fine with sharing what their experience is, but just out in New England, it's a different type of area, which I definitely enjoyed.
People are very close.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Oh, I'm trying to buy a house up. This is what I tell my wife. It's funny because we're living in Manchester right now. It's like city for what we live in. And I'm like, I'd rather live with Sasquatches in the woods and deal with them than live with these humans down here. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like,
yeah.
And I've seen them, and I'm afraid of them, bro. I'm honestly afraid to death about it because nobody's gonna believe you. You can't call 911. And you know what I mean? If you're having these encounters in your home, especially if it's your own property, And then from what I've heard, the second you shoot at them, then you're just shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, and you can
You know?
actually get in a lot of trouble if you do that in certain parts of the country. Now,
Yeah.
did you ever were you ever able to look in? I don't know if you were able to check to see if there's any other sightings or encounters that have happened in Bear Brook at all.
So the first year I started, I mean, I've been going. My wife sometimes gets annoyed with me because she like I'll try to go to bed. Like Sasquatch theory. When he does his little documentaries, and she goes, "Are you gonna put this on right now?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, yeah, why not?" And so yeah, I've done a lot of research, and there's been a couple, especially from Bear Brook. So one that I read was that one part of that's the park. There's cabins, and the apparently from what I read, the lady was she was smoking a cigarette in her cabin, and like she got a rock flinged at her or something like that. It's been a couple of years since I actually read this, and she thought it was weird, so she went inside. And then the next morning, when she woke up and came outside of the cabin, excuse me one second. When she came out of the cabin, that rock was like on the actual like floor of the first step or like the last step where like the actual porch starts. That was weird. And then another one from the camping side where you can put the tents. Somebody was seeing orbs, I believe. They said something about orbs. So there's been a couple, and on that, I think it's that Bigfoot map. I logged my encounter on there. So if you go on there, you'll see exactly where I had this encounter in Bear Brook, and then somebody I believe saw a footprint but that was by the game reserve. You can't hunt there with a rifle or firearm. You have to hunt with archery. So I never go in that section. And most of the park is actually reserved on that side. So the right side it's split by a road. The right side is archery only, and then the left side you can just use firearms. So that's the only ones that I've seen. Also, I've been trying to find this page from the first year. I don't remember what it was, but it was some sort of like New Hampshire, because there's not a lot of New Hampshire like Sasquatch pages. And this person was having them on his property, and he said that he posted a couple pictures of like fingerprints on his little trailer that he has and stuff like that. But I've never been able to find the page again. I don't know if it got deleted. I've never been able to like contact these people, and it stinks because I want to be able to connect with people. It's such a like my wife knows of it and believes me, and the people that tell they believe me, but it's not the same feeling of trying to connect with someone that's like, hey man, I know exactly what you saw. Which is actually funny because I believe Saturday I was out here fishing again, and this man from Haverhill, Mass was there, and he had a Sasquatch hat on. And I was like, hey, you believe in Sasquatch? He goes, yeah, I seen him. And I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, in Epping, New Hampshire. I river something campground. I've had 3 encounters up there, and I was like, we ended up talking for 2 hours while we were fishing about Bigfoot, because and to like make sure that that he was being legit, I asked him, I'm like, well, what color was it? He goes, well, it's auburn. I'm like, okay, well, that's supposed to be on the ground, the same thing realistically. So that felt nice. So there's an encounter from Epping itself, but yeah, nobody wants to talk about it, and it upsets me because I want to talk about it because I want people to know when you go into those woods, there's a risk, and it's not just a moose or a bear. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not afraid of those things, but I am definitely afraid of Sasquatch.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great thing to bring up is, when you're in New Hampshire, especially northern New Hampshire, like you got those. We've talked about moose like a few years ago. I think I shared my moose encounter in Maine. That's a different story. But are you more afraid of moose or Sasquatch when you go out in the woods in New Hampshire?
Oh, I'm Sasquatch.
Yeah.
Sasquatch. I have spent $1,000 already building a what's that? Spent already so far 800. I bought a Glock 20 10 millimeter. I have already installed a sight for it, and I'm going to get a barrel for it so I can have hard cast bullets in there. Because as self defense, I'm not out here. I don't want to shoot at them because I feel like when you shoot at a moose, it's an animal. Hey, it might kill you, but it's just an animal. I feel like a Sasquatch is not just an animal. It touches on the paranormal for sure. There's no way these things are out in Bear Brook State Park in close to Manchester, and it's just a monkey running around the woods. You know what I mean? There's no way. There's no way that it's not paranormal with it being in such a that park is it's crazy. It's like everybody's always there. There's so many people there. That's why I don't understand. It's like there's so many people there. Especially during the summer, there's camping, there's campgrounds, there's the cabins, like I said, there's like these little rivers so you can like fly fish and obviously hunting. During hunting season, I noticed that not a lot of hunters. The first year I noticed a lot of people, but then it's like gradually gone down and down. And like this year when I went, when I parked at that main spot, there was 2 cars there, but there were you can tell when it's like a hiker. There were hiker cars for sure. And the hikers, I mean, the whistling was from back and forth, and then that stomping that I heard, you can feel it in your core. Like it didn't feel like 4 feet. It felt like 2, like boom, 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 boom. And I was like, oh, whoa. I personally think, because from what I've heard, like some people think that they like migrate, and I'm sure they do, but I think the ones that live in this park live in this park. They're always there. I don't know how. I don't know where they go, but it's like I don't understand. You know what I mean? First day of hunting, and I'm already having this experience, and so it's like I'm glad I tagged out fairly quickly because I had to go by myself and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, do you think then that we're dealing with something that is a physical creature but also has supernatural power?
Yes, I somehow feel this is from my Christian background. I feel like this is linked somehow to the Old Testament and it survived the flood. I don't think they're Nephilims. I don't think that at all. But whatever this was, maybe came after the flood. I mean, you know, it already says that these fallen angels came down and mingled with human women and created these Nephilims. But who's to say after the flood they didn't keep doing this? You know what I mean? And I mean, the Bible also says that it's like in the end of days, so it'd be like the days of Noah. So it's like that can mean many things. You know what I mean? There was so much corruption in those days when Noah was alive. So it's like that's what I personally think. I know some people, you know, don't believe in Christ and the resurrection and all this stuff, and that's their belief, and you know, it's a free country. That's the beautiful thing about it. But just personally, I think they're physical, but there's something going on, and I think the government knows about it, but they don't. And I don't think it's all because of the whole like logging industry and all this stuff. I think it goes way deeper than we'll ever know until the last days. I think these things will roam around the last days and create chaos.
You know, that is an interesting theory. I've heard that a few different places recently where, you know, people will bring up certain verses in Revelation, like maybe these are the beasts that'll be, you know, let loose.
That's what I was.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Because I don't know if it's because of our connection to the internet and we're now connected more than ever that we're hearing these things. But it's like, how is it that somebody like me that has never hunted a day in his life gets his hunting license in 2020, and when I still have not seen a bear in real life. I've seen a moose in the same spot actually that I saw a Sasquatch. I think it was in year 2. I saw something like poking behind a tree and it creeped me out. I'm like, what the heck is that? And I put up my scope to my Savage, and I was like, oh, that's a baby moose. And I was like, oh, where's mama? And she came crawling around. Excuse me. She came like stomping through, and I literally first I thought it was fishing game truck, and I'm like, there's no trail over there. And then she came out, and I was like, I'm gonna go to the left, and I went that way, and I avoided them. But when it comes down to it, I'm more afraid of them than I am a moose or a bear, for sure. Like 100%. Like
Absolutely.
I feel like if I get into a fight with a moose or a bear, I feel like I have a chance of winning. If I get into a fight with the Sasquatch, I took this, and I told this to my wife, and I'm being serious because I have a kid. I have another one on the way. I was like, but I'm not gonna stop hunting because it's providing for my family. I was like, if I disappear and fishing game tries to tell you that a bear or a moose killed me, don't believe them because black bears are like skittish as hell. And don't get me wrong, they will kill somebody, but no, no. From what I hear, these things don't travel alone, and I mean, if you're running around the woods and you're like 8 feet tall and you're not getting caught, these things will snatch you up in a heartbeat. I mean, my wife wants to move to Maine, and my fear of moving to Maine is drastic because of the stories that I hear from Maine. Because I know if I go to Maine, I'm not going to want to hunt. I feel safe for some weird reason. I feel safer hunting in New Hampshire woods. I I don't know why. I mean, I'm afraid of them, but I feel like they don't want to create drama for themselves, by killing a hunter. Especially if
That's
they're
very
living in such a
interesting.
small park like that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's not a overly large park, but it's such an interesting account. And Alex, I just want to say thank you for coming on the show today and for sharing what you've experienced so far. I'm sure you may even have some other things happen in the future, but it's been a very interesting chat about a part of New Hampshire we don't really hear a lot about.
Yep, I've listened to a lot of your episodes, and I've noticed that. And you said that a couple times before. So, when you've had encounters from Massachusetts, and you're like, "Oh, we don't really get a lot from like New Hampshire or that kind of area." So I figured, I'm like, you know what? That's why I wanted to come on. I wanted to put my stain on the list of encounters.
Well, there you go. I appreciate you doing so, man, and definitely don't be afraid to reach out if anything else comes across your path.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it.
Just wanted to take a minute to say thank you for listening to this episode of the Bigfoot Society podcast. Alex's story is one of those encounters that lingers not just because of the glowing eyes or the way it sprinted off into the New Hampshire woods, but because of how close it came to being something far worse. So huge thanks to Alex for bravely sharing an encounter most people wouldn't believe and for reminding us that the unknown isn't just in Oregon or Washington. Sometimes it's right next to a main road in Manchester. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to us on YouTube, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any new episodes, and share this one with a friend who's into Bigfoot cryptids or the mysteries of the Northeast. And if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, make sure you're following the show and would be honored if you left us a positive review. If you or someone you know has had a Bigfoot encounter, especially in New England or New Hampshire, I'd love to hear from you, so please shoot me an email at bigfootsociety@gmail.com and let's talk about it. Don't forget, Sasquatch Summerfest is coming up July 11th through the 12th at Green Waters Park in Oak Ridge, Oregon. Bigfoot Society listeners can grab a 2-day pass for the price of a 1-day admission with code BFS at checkout. The tickets are over at SasquatchSummerfest.com. Thanks again for being part of the Bigfoot Society. Until next time, keep your eyes open, trust your gut, and never stop asking what else might be out there, and see you in the woods.